get ready to thrive loud with Lou Diamond.
Hey Thrive Loud listeners, this is Alexandra, one of the interns here at Thrive Loud. For today's Thrive Loud Minnesota, we'll go back to Cal Newport, an associate professor for computer science at Georgetown University and the author of 6 titles. In his works, Cal discusses the intersection of digital technology and culture. Particularly in deep work, Cal shares his view on the valuable ability to concentrate on a demanding task in the modern age that's full of distractions. So let's get ready and enjoy this Minnesota with Cal Newport, his book, and his idea of deep work.
So to understand why I wrote Deep Work, you have to go back to that book that's on the shelf next to you right now. The book I wrote back in 2012 called So Good They Can't Ignore You. And this was a book about how do people end up loving what they do for a living. And one of the big findings was they get really good at things that are unambiguously valuable. And that this foundation is one on which you can build really passionate, satisfying, meaningful careers. So I put this book out here. Those who agreed with me said, this is great. Okay, interesting. But how do we do that? How do we become so good that we can't get ignored? How do we become really good at unambiguously valuable things so we can build these really interesting and meaningful and satisfying lives? And it was really trying to solidify my answer to that question that my attention was drawn to this topic, which was focused attention seems to play an increasingly important role, especially in the knowledge economy, in how people do really well. It's almost like a elixir or a superpower that the better you are at focusing intensely without distraction, what I call deep work, the easier it is, or the more efficiently you can really start to produce things that matter. So it was following up from that last book that I ended up stumbling into a whole new book that became a topic all to itself.
Okay, so we have a lot of listeners on this program who do a lot of things. We have a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of very successful CEOs and folks who've been guests on this program, and a lot of just regular people who listen who have so many things around them distracting them every single day. As I say this right now, I'm looking obviously at our podcast recording tool. Messages are flying across my screen, texts, emails, social media posts, etc. It's never ending and there's tons of distractions. So how can one step into deep work?
Well, okay, let me first make the brief argument for why you should care.
Okay.
Because people might not want to know.
I know why we need to care. I mean, like, it is how you can't do, I don't believe in multitasking. I actually think you're doing one task at 1 second and then going to another. And there is something to be said that with all these distractions, it's noise around doing a really great job in what you need to do. So that's my opinion. I want to hear yours.
Well, that's definitely true. And I think people recognize increasingly, okay, you can't literally multitask. This was a big thing back in the early 2000s where people would have 3 or 4 windows open at the same time. A lot of research came out that said, okay, that's bogus, which people had a lot of anecdotal experience to probably back that up. You're trying to talk on the phone while typing your email. Both the conversation and the email probably go in weird, unintentional directions. Right. So what people do now, especially knowledge work, is they think they are single tasking. So they just have one thing open. They just have Microsoft Word open. They're writing out the whatever it is, the marketing plan, and they're concentrating deeply on it. Except every 10 minutes or so, they do a quick check. Let me just quick check my inbox. Okay, I'll close it again. Let me quick check my phone. Let me just quick check the text message that shows up in iMessage on my screen. It feels like you're single tasking because you're not doing multiple things at the same time. And these checks are real quick, but we now know from the psychology research that these can be just as bad, that there is a cost in what's called attention residue in just the context switch. It doesn't matter how long you look at your inbox or how long you look at your phone while you're doing a quick check. It's actually just the cost of that context switch, even if it lasts for just 30 seconds. When you try to bring your attention back to the original hard task, your cognitive capacity is reduced. And it's reduced for a long period of time. It could be 10, 15, 20 minutes, which means most people are doing another quick check before that attention residue has cleared. And so we have a whole population of knowledge workers who are accidentally putting themselves into a state of self-imposed reduced cognitive capacity. It's like anti-coffee or something like this. What can I do to reduce my ability to actually produce value with my brain? And so this is why when I define deep work, it's not just that it's mentally hard. I include in my definition this idea that it's done with no distraction. And what that means is no quick checks. So this activity that produces massive amounts of value, that lets you learn fast things really quick, which lets you produce really high quality work and do it at a rate that makes your colleagues think that you have some sort of superpower. This skill, deep work, depends on both of these things. You're concentrating intensely, and that while you're concentrating, there are zero context switch, zero distractions.
So those zero distractions, I want to talk about that. I was not kidding you. While we were doing this interview here, I try to keep there's no noise around me because we're doing an audio cast. So I shut those audio things off. But digitally, I'm getting these offers, so to speak, for me to be distracted, right? Text messages, alerts, social media posts, inboxes in the emails. There was an Amber Alert located over here not too long ago that just came through my phone. We're being pushed with a lot of these distractions. Okay, so what can we do with these push distractions? I get it. I can make a choice to shut everything out, but a lot of things are just coming right at us.
Well, first you have to realize that this idea that digital busyness is a mark of pride. This idea that if you're jumping from inbox to alert to social media post and back to the inbox, maybe you feel like you're a mover and shaker and you're being very productive and a lot is getting done. You're being sold a bill of goods, right, when you're hearing that message. This type of what I call shallow work, stuff that does not require intense concentration of you to apply hard-won skills, doesn't move the needle. It's not going to get you the new clients. It's not going to get you the promotion. It's logistical at best. And so the first thing I try to convince people before I give them the logistics of even how to do it is that it's worth doing. It's the deep work that moves the needle. Like the way I like to say for entrepreneurs, maybe the shallow work is what prevents you from losing one of your current clients. I mean, you need to answer to them real quick, but it's the deep work that's going to get you towards the 10x growth or the major acquisition, the big change. Or if you work for someone else, the shallow work might keep you from getting yelled at by your boss or keep you from getting fired. But the deep work is what's going to get you promoted, what's going to give you your boss's job in 2 or 3 years. That in our knowledge economy, especially as it gets increasingly competitive, it's the hard focus stuff that matters, and it's different than the other stuff. And we have to differentiate those two and realize that if you're not doing the hard focus stuff, that's probably a really big problem.
Yeah, using a vocabulary word that we'll both get on the same page, I guess, for our listeners, those that do the deep work thrive loud.
You've been listening to Thrive Loud with your host, Lou Diamond. Make sure to subscribe on iTunes, Overcast, or wherever you get your podcasts. And follow us on Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram at Thrive Loud. Or find us on the web at thriveloud.com.